looks like it looks like we're probably good. We're probably good to go. And good evening. This is welcome to Terry's Pixlr Trix show on the Terry's Tech Show this week. And I wanted to talk about a program called Pixlr that comes from pixlr.com /editor. I specifically want to discuss the editor that they have, and get us into some of the really neat things that this editor can do. So that's what we're going to do this week. We're going to look at the editor, and then we're going to go take a quick little run over to my pixlrtemplates.com page, and it's an HTML page I whipped together originally so that I would have these templates available to myself for doing when I was doing AdWords types of things, and it's expanded out as I've gotten involved with the different social media things, and particularly with Google Plus, so that now it has little templates for making all the different banners and covers and your event pages and profile pics and all those different things, where you have to look up all these darn sizes that they want you to have and then figure out how to make an image that size that they're asking for and all that. And this page makes it so that you can just click on a link and it takes you right to pixlr.com's editor, and with the image already in place at the right size. So all you have to do is bring imagery in and resize it to fit the size image that's already there. So it's all done with layers. Layers, what are you talking about? So let's get right over to the program and start talking about Pixlr so you can see what I'm talking about with layers and all that kind of good stuff. Okay. All right, so this is the Pixlr editor program, and it's at pixlr.com /editor. In fact, let me go ahead and bring up, see if I have Sizer and zoom in here. And oh darn, I haven't ever installed Zoom In. Well, okay. Well, we won't get to zoom in on stuff, but anyway, this is 1080p, so you should be able to see okay. This is pixlr.com /editor, and it takes you to this page where you can create a new image from scratch, or at least decide on what size you're going to do. Open an image from your computer and manipulate that, or open an image from a URL that you might have somewhere else. So you can go, for instance, into Google's image search, and then let's find field of flowers, and so it shows us this. Go to images, and we don't want to use anything that's pay for here, so click on search tools and usage rights here, and have it labeled for not just reuse, but for reuse with modification. Okay, and that means that you can use it even commercially with modification, and it's not a problem. These ones down here labeled for non-commercial reuse are for only like nonprofits or personal websites. If you've got a commercial application, then you should use the one that says labeled for reuse. And since we're going to modify a little bit by resizing it, you need it to be with modification. All right, so let's pick a field of flowers. Oh gosh, it's so hard to decide. What do I pick? And so all of these, again, these are all available to you to use for any use, okay? And you can also sort by size, and I'm going to look for some large ones. Just show me large ones, thank you. And this looks like a nice one right here, eh? Okay, so let's view the image. It's pretty big, and we'll copy the image URL just so I can show you how that works. And now I go in here to open image from URL, and I paste that in there, hit OK, and it goes and grabs it from the web and puts it in here so now that you can alter it and change it and mess around with it. Okay, isn't that cool? Yes, it's cool. That's all you had to do, just say, yes, Terry, that is incredibly cool. And it certainly is. It's amazing, actually. It's totally amazing. And we have this kind of accessibility to the web images. So anyway, let me just adjust my volume. I don't overload you guys. Okay, so we can get this, and let's just keep this thing in mind that we have this image over here, this field of flowers thing, okay? There's all kinds of things you can do with the layers over here. And you see on the right, you have the layers palette. And the layers palette allows me to do different things to images, such as add text as a layer on top of it. I can duplicate the layers and use what's called blending modes, which are inside of this button right over here on the lower left. Okay, and so I can make copies and change that. Well, let's go ahead and make a copy. I'll drag this down to the new page icon, and see I've made a copy of the same thing. And now I'm going to blend it using a one good one is overlay. Overlay makes instant contrast, adds instant contrast to the image. But as you can see, that's a little bit too much. So I'll just turn down the opacity of that upper layer, and that pulls back the amount of the effect. Okay, so we already had a pretty nice picture right here in terms of the intensity, but now you see how you could alter things. Another great way of using the copies is that you can then apply hue and saturation moves to it. Anything that you do using the adjustments, like the hue saturation or the color vibrance or any of these, it happens to the layer that you have selected. So let's pick vibrance, and we'll just go ahead and put it full up, and let's see if so there's, it's a little slow to respond today, maybe because I'm streaming 1080p. So I can up the opacity and bring in more vibrance and get this really strong picture where it has contrast. And because it's a layer, I can go back and I can say, oh, I want it light, just to lighten it. That's what screen does. Or I want to just darken it, for instance. And that's what the darken does. It only makes the two layers affect each other only in the darker areas. And also, this is great for doing sharpening, where you can sharpen a layer and then combine it. In fact, you can sharpen a layer and then make a copy of the sharpened one and use darken and lighten separately in order to make a sharpened version. So let's go ahead and do that. I'll show you. Go to Filter, Sharpen, and we use On Sharp Mask because that's the better sharpen. And we'll pump it up quite hard with a radius of, say, 6, and the threshold's kind of high there at 15. There we go. And so you see it's like crazy killer sharp right now, even in darken mode. So let me pull it back a little bit. There we go. And so now I've got that. Now let's say I did this in regular, normal. You see what happens here. You see all the way sharpen works is it makes a dark halo on the inside of an edge and a light halo on the outside of the edge, or vice versa, depending on the contrast and color information of the edge. But so by making this darken, it makes it so you only see the darker halo of the sharpening. So then you drag it down and make another copy. And let's just get this thing bigger. And now that I have this copy, I'll make this one lighten. And I gotta drag this thing down, lighten, and this is now the lighter halo of that sharpening effect, which I want to turn down the opacity of substantially. Alright, so now I've got this combo where I was separated like you used to be able to do in the really super expensive drum scanners. I was able to separate the light halo from the dark halo, and adjust them independently of each other in order to do a sharpening action. All right, so you see how layers have all these different uses. Most people think, oh, a layer is just for doing like things I would have been doing destructive edits to, like you trying to erase or something. But I mean, you can do that too. But the whole point is to be able to do non-destructive edits. I haven't touched my background layer. Here's my original layer. Is still completely intact. I haven't messed with it at all. And it's best to just keep these layers, because you can go up here to File and save it as a layered file, a PXD file, okay? And you would want to not save it as a JPEG, which would flatten it into a thing without any layers, but you would go down here, this layered pixel image style, and you would save it as the layered thing, and that way you save all your layers. Then if you need a JPEG or you need a PNG, which you'll need a PNG in order to have transparency, which I'll show you a little bit later when we're talking about Pixlr templates. When you're doing that, it flattens it for you. In other words, it combines. Flattening means it combines all the layers into one layer. It kind of just combines them all together, and then it creates your JPEG or your PNG file from the flattened version. But I always say, save your layered version too to your hard drive. You know, put it on a CD later. It has to have a backup of what you did, so that you can always go in and load it in again and uncheck things, get rid of a layer that was an overkill, whatever. When you actually get it into the environment where you're going to use the picture, you might say, oh my gosh, I sharpened it way too much, especially that lighter halo. Terry showed me how to make the lighter halo. I got to pull that light halo back a little bit because I had it too intense and it looked like, you know, really too much. Now, actually, I find, especially for man-made objects, I usually need the halo, the white light halo, to be is about 28, and I usually let the dark halo be up all the way at about 100 to 90 to 100, and that tends to make the effects that I'm after. But you know, it's all a taste thing. It's all about taste and all about what you like and what you want to have happen. But by doing it this way, you have more control over all of these things. Okay, now let's say I was going to come and change the image size or the canvas size. There's all these different ways that things that you can do in here. I would save a copy first of this thing that has the original size, and then go ahead and do an image size change or a canvas size change, so that you can go back to the original and kind of like start over again in case it messes up. Definitely the same thing for any kind of cropping action. Crop on a copy that you make. Okay. Let's see, what else would be a good thing to mention. Select all. Well, the free transform is a tool that you're going to use later on. I'll show you. Yeah, we'll get into that a lot more when I show you the Pixlr templates. And selecting all selects all the pixels so that you can copy them and paste them into another document. Okay, and selecting pixels is a little bit different. I'll get into that later when I have a really good example to show you what the difference is. But it makes it so okay, well, let's say you have a picture, you have some transparency already in it, some spots where you can see through to whatever's underneath, and you're going to use this on a web page. But you select all, which select the transparency areas as well as the parts that you can see, whereas select pixels only selects where there's no transparency, where it's got color values to the pixels. All right, so that's what that's about. And of course, you got your select all and deselect all. This Control A and Control D is very useful to know, because here I'll show you what a select all. You get these little lines. Can you see the marching ants moving around the edge here? A deselect, just Control D, just gets rid of them. Same thing if you selected using a marquee tool, using this tool here. It makes the little ants, and Control D gets rid of it. Or you can, of course, go up to the edit. Now, one thing that's really useful when you start getting into making masks, which I have a whole show on making masks in Pixlr elsewhere on my channel. But when you start getting into making masks, then, and we will cover making masks tonight, okay? Then you often want to invert the selection. So if you make this square, but you want that to be the part where you're having the effect, then you would, and there's no shortcut key for this, by the way, and you would want to come up here to edit and invert the selection. So you see now it's choosing this rectangle, so that's basically saying the inside is what's chosen. Well, inverting the selection makes everything but this rectangle selected. And I'll go ahead and I'll go here to make a mask so you can see what I'm talking about. This second button is the Add Layer Mask. And you can see, well, let's see if I can make that visible. Yeah. Not really. Let's add a layer, and I'm going to add a layer and fill this with color. I'll fill it with a gradient. Okay, put this below. Well, maybe I think in this case just a solid color would have been a better idea. So let's select all, Control A, selects all, and I'll just paint in black here. Oops, select. Hey, I wonder if this is a case for wanting to select pixels. I think not. Nope, let me just back out of this. Select all, back to here. I want the gradient. There we go. Okay, so a new layer, and it was painting into the gradient, which is interesting effect. Okay, so there you see how I punched that hole in there, and I'm seeing through the black. So if I paint a different color into that other than black, now I've got this color in back of this, or I should have. Whoa, did I have something selected? Oh, it's because I'm in, it's because of my mode. 1 second. Lighten's making it have an effect on everything. Get rid of the lighten for a second. There we go. Now we're talking. Okay, so now you can see that it's having this effect on that channel and letting me see through this this mask which I'd created, which had partially selected some of the it partially selected this. In fact, very interesting. Oops. Oh, cancel. There we go. Well, I think I just confounded myself because I didn't expect that to happen. That's very interesting. Let's get rid of this layer mask. Find out what happened. Delete layer mask. Oh, I went and paint bucketed on top of the wrong thing. Okay. There we go. Marquee tool, invert selection, add layer mask. And that's where I messed up. And I selected the pixels. Oh, okay, so that's what happened. I selected pixels in that case at the wrong time. All right, so I have my layer mask. Let's make a new layer. Let's bring it down here. Let's go ahead and paint into that layer. And it's still surprising me because I didn't think I would be seeing through this. Oh, well, again, I have my opacity turned down. That's what it is. Okay. Why didn't you guys holler at me? You got your opacity turned down, Terry. You're supposed to tell me these things. So, okay. In fact, let me just take a look at something. Oh, okay. Might have been trying to talk to me, but I don't even have my I don't have my events page turned on. It's kind of a no-no. Let me go ahead and make sure I can see if you're asking me any kind of questions. 1 second. Ta-da! And all right, but what I wanted to show you is how when I inverted the mask, that's what made the hole in this thing make it so I could see the layer that was underneath. And I just went and confused myself though because I had the opacity of this layer was turned down. I should have. And I was just trying to avoid getting rid of the layer, and I got lazy. I should have just made a new layer out of something and copied stuff into it, but I didn't. Okay, so anywho, all right, good. I don't have any questions coming in from the audience, so that's good. I just wanted to make sure of that. So let's go ahead and go back again to where I started with this whole mess, and just Whoa. I just threw away my history by clicking on the, here we go, view history. Thank you. Don't click this little X when you're holding this thing. Don't click the X. All right, so there we are. So now we're back to where we were before. And yes, so we have darken, lighten, and we have this thing at full opacity. So I'll pull it back so it has a little bit of sharpening, but not too much. But yeah. And the darken layer. There we have it. Okay, so now we're back to that point of the picture. Now, one thing that might be really useful to do in this case would be to go ahead and make a copy of this thing and make a new image. So let me think. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to merge this thing down so that it's all flattened, but I'm going to then create a new one and come back to the history. Let's see if we can do that. Okay, so we'll go in here and we'll say flatten image. You can also just merge the visible. Select all and Control C for copy. And now let's make a new, let's go ahead and unmerge the layers by going back to here. And go ahead to new image. And see it says clipboard, knows that you've selected something. And just create an image from the clipboard. So you don't even have to paste. As long as you've copied, it knows. So now I've got a copy of this thing sitting in here that I can use as a basis of anything I wanted to add for more layers or anything else that I wanted to do. Okay. So do you see how I did that? So if I need a full copy of this sharpened, this is fully sharpened. Now I can do a Control A, Control C, copy this thing in, and come back to here, and do a Control V, and move this to the top. Now I've got this new layer. And now I can do other things to this sharpened layer. And by the way, when you type your name in here, just click outside the text, and that's what makes it take. So now I can do other things in here, like play around with hue saturation or different types of color things. And I'm working on a layer, on a copy that I made from this copy over here. Let's deselect, Control D. All right, so now I've created a new layer from this merged copy. So I'm working from the sharpened thing. And I can now combine that with what's below, with the sharpened stuff that's below. But I haven't gotten rid of my work over here. I can also just get rid of these because this is the same thing. I have this at 100% opacity, so you can't see through it to what's below yet. But if I wanted to use this to further alter what I see below, then that's possible. So I can do things like take hue saturation, for instance, and really whack out the hue. Okay, we're just going to really go to town here on some nutty ideas. Okay, so there's a nutty idea. I'm going to make the hue completely wrong. Now I'm going to add I'm going to make a, I'm going to hold this down. I'm going to change this from rectangle to circle, and I'm going to select a nice big circle and move that into place in the middle. There we go, that's good enough. I'm going to feather the heck out of this thing, meaning feathering means you're blurring the edges so it's not a hard edge. Okay, I'm going to really change this. And so now whatever I do to this is not going to make a hard edge. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to invert it so that, remember I told you if I wanted to make a mask, which is what I'm about to do, I have to invert the selection so that it punches the hole where the mask is. So invert that selection, and now go down here to the second button down here and create a mask. And now you can see what's happened is that it's punched a hole through here. And hardly feathered it. I don't see where it's really feathered it so great. I could have used a little more feathering action. But anyway, so now that's done. One thing I was actually curious about, we were talking about this the other day, was whether or not blur or Gaussian blur would have an effect on just the mask and nothing but the mask, but as it doesn't, it affects the image content of the layer. It's still kind of neat though, because I can blur the heck out of that background layer and just have the part that I've made the hole in. But apparently, I think we've just demonstrated that the amount of feathering that happens to the mask is minimal. So this is where it does not work like Photoshop. I can still make a soft edge though to this by using a brush, for instance. I can, whatever is selected here is what a brush will paint on, and all a mask really is a it's white paint on a background. So if I go ahead to here and I make this white, and I go up here and get a fuzzy brush, a nice big fuzzy brush. So I'm going to pick my biggest fuzzy brush, 200, and the hardness is 50. I'm going to make it even less hard. I'm going to turn the hardness down to like just about nothing. And I can make my brush even bigger than this. So in fact, I'm going to make my brush even bigger. Oh yeah, that's the kind of brush I'm talking about. And I'm going to kind of just run around the edge of this thing like this and paint out some of the this image. And so let's go ahead and you see, don't be put off by the fact that it's glowing to show you where the brush is having an effect, so that you can kind of follow it. But what I'm doing is I'm painting a larger hole into this thing that has a fuzzy edge. All right, so here we go. And because it's all fuzzy, there we go. Well, I really needed a different size brush. I needed to be painting in black. Okay, so I did it the wrong direction. I've made the outside encroach further on the inside. So actually I should have been painting in black, so forgive me. I get confused because there's two ways of looking at a mask. If you're trying to expose the content of the layer, then you're painting in black to hide the content of the layer. I'll just show you a little bit. I'll just do this much. Okay, so now actually, I don't even know what I'm doing. It looks like painting in any kind of color is having the wrong effect. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm thinking in Photoshop, so you just caught me. Hey, well, now you get to see a discrepancy between this and Photoshop. In this, if I paint with anything, black, white, if I add pixels of any color, so you change that to white, and there we go. So no matter what pixels I add, it affects the mask, okay? I would have to use the eraser tool on the mask, and let's go ahead and make the brush big, real big and real soft, no hardness, 620. Here we go, and go ahead through here, and now you see the erasing tool is by your taking away pixels. So Photoshop is quite different. In Photoshop, you paint with black, it has one effect, and we used to usually equate the black with like a keyhole that you look through the black to see what's behind it. Alright, so now you see I've made this section larger and more soft edged as far as how it goes in there, and it's using the eraser on the mask. So in Photoshop you paint in white to add to the mask and paint in black to remove from the mask. In Pixlr it's different. You erase the pixel content in order to enlarge the whole, okay? And it's a little actually more intuitive that way, isn't it? Because you think, well, I'm punching a hole in the mask. But I'm not punching a hole in the image content. I'm just punching a hole in the mask. And so now let me go ahead and see about, they have delete. Well, in this program you can't really turn off the layer mask, which is a pain in the butt. I wish it did. But no, it makes, you can apply it, you can add one, you can delete one, but you can't just turn it off and turn it on again. This is another reason why you buy something like Photoshop, is because it lets you do it before and after preview to see what happens. But so you get it. It wouldn't matter if I painted with yellow or any color, black, white. If I paint with any kind of pixels, then there we go. Then I'm adding to the mask. Oh, get rid of this thing. I'm saying, like, if you paint with the brush, then it's making it so you can see more of the content of that layer, okay? And you're seeing through wherever the hole is. And the hole was where you inverted the selection before you made the mask. You can barely make out in this little tiny thumbnail what's going on with the where the light part is, which is the hole, and the dark part is, which is the part that's saying, wherever I see this green, that's where I see this layer. And wherever it's white, is where I see through the layer to the layer that's underneath. Okay, so let's again go to eraser and get rid of that and make it bigger. There we go. So now it has this kind of surreal Alice in Wonderland type of a look that has the strong yellow flowers, and then it kind of fades out in vignettes to a fantasy flower world around the edges, where everything is inverted and the colors and super saturated, looking crazy. Okay, so I hope you got that idea that was kind of how I did that. Remember, I was working on a copy that I made by merging these, copying it, pasting it into a new document. Came right back, and I used undo to, put the layers back after I'd flattened everything. I put the layers back into layers mode, so I'd have them to save. But I needed a flattened copy, so I made that by using the paste thing. All right, well, I hope that was kind of a cool trick that you'll go, wow, this program's really pretty massive. I didn't have to actually delete a hole in the original. I can remove this, delete this mask, and get back to my original purpley thing, or I can simply fill this thing. I can just fill it with color, like from a paint box tool, and let's see if that works. Oh, look at that! It actually paints the. That's fascinating. It's painting according to the grayscale level. Well, I was surprised about that. I didn't expect that. Okay, well, let's go back in time. Get rid of that paint bucket tool. That did something I totally didn't expect. That it painted only in the just look, it's just following a certain grayscale. And I did not know it was capable of doing that. That's very curious. Okay, so let's undo that. Paint bucket tool. So I can grab a great big brush, and I can paint with any pixel color, as I said, and that removes this entire layer from this upper quadrant section. Let's let it take. There we go. And so I can just paint with any color, any pixels at all of any color, and it has this effect. Or I can take the eraser and erase any section that I want to bring to what's below, what's underneath, back, punching a hole with the eraser tool, but I'm not punching a hole in the actual content. Now, if I had done this to the actual content, would I have been able to undo it and just use a paintbrush or an eraser to change things around, to change the quality of that? No, you would have actually erased a hole. You would have erased a big hole, and you would have had to go back here and get your original back and paste it back in here and change the hue saturation control and knock out the color and do all that stuff all over again. So if I wanted to just see this layer now, I could, using the eraser tool, I can go ahead in here and just erase this entire mess. Or I could probably select all and hit the delete key, and that will yeah, that seems to have filled it with white. Nope, it didn't. It actually deleted content. So okay, be forewarned. The selection tools only work on the image content, even though I've got the mask selected. Okay, the delete key worked only on the image content. So you don't want to be using that for this kind of a purpose. Looks like the mask is somewhat limited in that way. There may be some other things that I just haven't discovered about ways of manipulating the mask to get more capabilities out of it. I would love it if I was able to I would love it if I was able to use tools like the selection tools on the masked area. Now I might be able to actually use, like, say I used another oval, and let's see if that constrains my erasing activity to just inside the oval. And because I am working on the or let's say my paintbrush activity, because I already have a hole punched there. Yes, okay, well that's nice to see. The selection tools do constrain the activity so they don't go outside the selection and have any effect outside the selection. So at least you have that going on, that you've got where you can have an action just inside a constrained area and not have an effect anywhere else. Okay, so now you see it. And let's see how far back in history I can go. Pretty far. There we go, good. That's far enough back. So this is back again to the layer that we wanted to see. Now let's see, I now changed its modes and changed it from the regular normal mode and tried out some of these others. Okay, so there's what difference does. Notice it's only having an effect where the green area is, which is showing this layer itself. So I've made it even more kind of fantasy, where I'm only seeing a change happen to this layer, and it's not actually changed any pixels. All I've done is change how these pixels on this layer affect the pixels that are below, and I've got them doing the difference, meaning they're only showing where the pixels are a different color. Okay, whether if they were the same color you wouldn't see them change. Erase has never worked for me. Hard light is another kind of a neat effect. And so the point is to go through and experiment with these. Yeah, that's kind of cool. And experiment with these and see what kind of an effects you can come up with. Remember, as long as you're working in layers and working in this non-destructive kind of a fashion, and you've got your history over here where you can undo things very easily, you can really go to town and do quite a bit of stuff in experimenting around. Plus, you can always make a copy of the mess, and or you can save it and reload it again, and it'll reload as another document alongside. It will be called untitled, and work on things that way. All right, so I've shown you some pretty extreme things. I wanted you to be able to get a handle on the mask. So I do because I work in Photoshop and in Pixlr. Frankly, the masks on Pixlr are something that I tried out a couple of times, and I'm so used to using them in Photoshop, it's not even funny. And I used them, and they were not acting the way I was used to. It was really confusing me, frankly. And that's why, is because I didn't realize it used erase and any color pixels as the thing's the same as black and white works, the way black and white works in Photoshop. So let's go ahead and get out my eraser, and we'll just do one final little move through here with this brush, just sort of smooth, and I'm just going to soften this edge just again. And yeah, I don't like that. It was too much. I see, I was too close. There we go. And I could be using a smaller brush. That's the reason why I gotta be being so huge. Alright, so I'm feathering it a little bit too much, but you see what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to get rid of that visible edge. Let's go ahead and take the brush and keep it down to about 100, and this makes it a lot more in control. Okay, and I could really feather that out even more. Oh, I went and picked a hard brush. So undo, nice soft brush, about 200. I was going to make the hardness a little bit more, and that's showing me where the actual range is. Get my diameter down, and there we go. Okay, so I'm painting out this edge, and we will discover, and I will share it probably next week. I'll find out how you can feather this edge even when you're making the mask, or find another way of feathering this edge besides using an eraser tool. There's got to be a way. There's got to be a really cool way other than using the eraser tool and brush sizes. But I will report on that next week when we go into some other kind of cool Pixlr Trix type things. All right, now that we've got this crazy looking thing, and it's inverted and pretty intense, and I've shown you a whole bunch of different ways that this can be happening. Oh, that's even more dramatic. Let's go ahead and start adding some text. So click on the text tool over here, and let's just click up here where I'm going to have some text. We'll say Alice in Wonderland. And I will make it so it's not a black font, so it's a white font. Show up in this. And now I will mess around with its, notice I clicked right here for that. I'll make it bold. I'll make it bold italic. And up the size. Here we go. A little slider lets me up the size. And if you need to center, you just grab hold of it and move it around. Okay, now I can fool around with all the different fonts that I've got in here, which I've got a lot of fonts. Now some of these aren't. Oh, that's a nice font right there, like R Blanca. Now it kind of cut off right here on the right. So because it's italic, whenever you italicize, you sometimes have to add spaces after the thing to make the slant appear so it'll show up. Okay. And in fact, it's cutting off my left side a little bit, so I'm going to put a space before it too. But that's another thing you can do in this program. And then you take the move tool, this tool right here, and you grab it. You'll notice that this has, there we are, this has come in as its own layer. Okay, now I can merge this with the layer below it, and so that they're all together as one, but that will usually throw away the mask. But it is possible to merge layers together. Like I say, when you flatten everything just, all the layers go away, and then you just have one image. But for now, we're keeping this to get so that it's a movable layer. Now let's go ahead and make a background for this that's a rectangular background. It's a little bit darker. That I'm just going to use to darken the region of flowers behind the white so that it's more visible. So I'm going to go ahead and take and make a new layer. I'm going to put that layer underneath my text, but notice it's in between the text and the image. I'm going to get this marquee tool and make sure I've got the rectangle, not the circle selected. And I'm going to select an area around the text. And there we are. Oh, and I have rounded corners, wouldn't you? Oh, my feathering is on. Let's try that again. Control D, selection. We didn't want feathering in this case. We just want a rectangle. Feathering might be a nice idea. I mean, I'm not saying never use feathering. I'm just saying for what I want to show you, because I want you to see that it's a rectangle. We want to keep it that way. Now we'll go up here to the paint bucket tool, and we'll pick a color. And I'm going to pick, just leave it with the black, and paint in the black. And so now what are the different things we can do? Well, we can you know, change the different values in here, but what I'm just going to do, all I really need to do to make this thing have the effect I want, is take it and grab the opacity and pull it back, so that just so that it darkens things a little bit, but lets me see through. Okay, so what I've actually done is by lowering the opacity, I've made it be kind of a gray. Now that I've lowered the opacity, I can do things like multiply, darken, difference, all kinds of different things that I can do. Difference isn't having much of an effect with black. That would have more of a color effect on colors. Hard light, not that impressed with what that one can do in this case. Let's see what multiply and layer will do. Not impressed. Ah, that's interesting. Overlay does some interesting action. So overlay is actually changing the color beneath as a result. And so that actually makes it more interesting. So you see how I'm saying you just kind of experiment around. And if I had filled this with a different color, overlay would work differently. And also if this were colors, then I could use things like the lighten and multiply. It would work on the pixel values in a different ways. All right, so there you have it, where it's that way. And by the way, Control Z is undo, same thing as moving up here, and Control Y is redo, okay, which moves down in the history. Now let's say instead of having this rectangle that would look like this, say I did want a softer edge to that thing, to that box. That's where the feather would have come in to make a softer edged box, something that kind of faded in a vignette type of a thing around the Alice in Wonderland. So let's go ahead and Control Z a couple of times and get rid of this altogether. And this time I will select this thing and I will set the feathering to be fairly high, around 50 pixels or so. And we can always go back and redo it, just keep on doing. So let's make my box around here pretty tight. And you see it's showing me where the actual effect is going to be as its outer edge, the outer edge of the effect. So get my paint bucket tool out, paint inside of here. And as you can see, it's faded out, and so as a result, I can kind of push that overlay up a little bit more. But you see how it's done that thing where it's fading out to the edge? And so here we are, see? So now you don't have that hard box type of a look. And that's really useful when you're doing things like lower thirds. Aha, this is all coming back to the Pixlr templates. When you're doing things like lower thirds, and you don't want those hard edge boxes, you want some kind of image content, you want things to combine together. Well, this is how you do that. You do it all through filling up a rectangle. All right? Because this Pixlr templates doesn't have regular shape tools. It had for making boxes. You use the selection tools, and for circles the same thing. Use the selection tools and then the paint bucket tool or the gradient tool and fill it up. It's also remember, this is also how you make a mask in something, and you invert the mask. You make the selection about the area that you're going to want to see. You go to edit, invert, and then you make your mask, and then it'll make it so you can see through that spot that you'd selected, and that'll be your hole. And again, so that's basically where the no pixels thing is going on, because you're seeing through where it's punched a hole, same as the eraser. Where there are pixels is where you're seeing the layer that's sharing the same layer as the mask. It's where you're seeing the image content. Okay, so we got some interesting stuff going on here. It's looking pretty spacey, and as far as demos go, this is working out really okay. Now I've got a little bit of intensity here that I might not want. I might want to pull back on some of the color, but again, I can do that by taking and selecting my top, or I'll select this one. Go ahead and select all, Control A and Control C for copy, and then come back here and Control V for paste, and it puts in a copy of my layer. And now I can use that in various ways to kind of mess with the color content that's below by using lighten, darken, all these different things, multiply, overlay, and at different intensities. Screen's going to lighten the whole thing. Darken is going to take and darken anything that's in the content. I can also, remember, I can apply the color tools that are up here in the adjustment layers. The hue, saturation, color balance, color vibrance. Now, color balance lets me change red offset, green offset, blue offset of just a particular layer, and that's handy. If you're wondering, it's the combinations of these different colors that create various colors. Okay, so you can lower red and green, or increase blue in order to do things to yellow. So there's ways of selecting that, but I'll get into selective color correction types of moves later on, and you may find that kind of stuff pretty interesting. Now, say I wanted this same mask to be affecting this content in here, so it didn't have an effect on the other. You can simply take this, click and hold the control key down and click, and it will select the mask that you got there, and then I can go here and make a new mask out of that, and now I've got the same mask applied, but I didn't invert it, you see, so now it's the opposite. It's having an effect on the opposite portions of the picture. So if I did something heavy duty to these pixels, now you can see where it's had its effect. So this layer is only affecting this. Remember what I did? I changed the content of the blues and everything, increased the amount of blue, and so this is having this effect punching through like that. So I bring this back and it has that effect. However, if I had inverted first, let's go ahead and do that. And oh, actually we're up here. Select pixels. Okay, let's go ahead and invert. Remember, you can only do that when there's no keyboard shortcut. You do that from here, and then go ahead and add a mask. And now it's going to punch the same hole through that you saw in this other one. Oh, actually, I selected pixels, didn't I? All right. I just see it. If I didn't look down here, I wouldn't have noticed that I'd selected pixels. And I didn't want to select pixels. I wanted to select all. And Control A didn't select all. It selected pixels. Oh, no. Dumb me. Sometimes I just have to say, pay no attention to that man behind the curtain. If I select this thing here with the control down, that is the same as selecting pixels right here, the edit select pixels thing. And that's what selects the transparency versus the pixels. So where you didn't have transparency, it gets selected. Okay. However, it seems to select it in a it doesn't really select grayscale, it doesn't seem. Because if I look at this, that's a nice clean hole. That doesn't look like a nice clean hole at all. It looks like it's selected it based on some kind of gray values. And so when I make the mask here, it is not the same looking hole at all. Okay? And even if I invert this, it's not the same looking hole. So that's going to take some playing around, and I'll do some experimentation because I've been curious as far as how useful this is. Okay, it may have its own little quirks, but it's another thing that's not like Photoshop. It works different, quite a bit different. So anyway, there you have it. We've got a good start here. We've got an interesting image. Let me just deselect, and we've got some text on here. So now let's and I've showed you how to make a vignetted box around some text in order to make it stand out some more. And this is really useful when you're putting text on top of image content, is to be able to darken what's behind it by putting a slightly dark box behind the text. Okay. Now let's see how the Pixlr templates would have would have brought up something like this. The size of this image was 1209 by 806. That was just the size that this image happened to be. And so here's your before and after. This is the sharpened version that we had, and this is the other one. I could also go back and I wonder if that's still in my memory. Let's see. It is. Open image URL, and so there's the original. In fact, that looks pretty washed out compared to what we've been working on over here. Mind you, all this may look too dark because I have a pretty high gamma light monitor, and so this may look fine on your monitor, and this all may look too dark and too garish. But that's because I've got a pretty high gamma thing to match Macintoshes, because they traditionally are a different gamma, a lighter looking monitor. But anyway, so here it's pretty radical, the difference here, eh? Okay, so let's get rid of this. I'm going to go to pixlrtemplates.com, and as you see, it's a video like this one that gives you some explanation, some very basic explanation on how to create a rectangle out of the mark using a selection tool. And how to stop your mouse from freezing up. Let's see. Oh no, my computer's crashing. 1 second. I suddenly can't do a thing. This is great. Let's see. Okay, I think I'm going to try to... I can't even tab myself out of this thing for some reason. My computer is just frozen up. Everything is frozen. And if you're still hearing me, it's you're in luck. It's just a total oddball. You can hear anything. But it looks like I'm going to have to actually shut down my computer because everything just stopped. I can't even Alt-Tab out of this. Oh, well, I can now. Oh, maybe it might just be my poor keyboard's batteries are running down. I turned off the thing and turned it back on again, and I was okay. All right, so this shows you a rudimentary in here how to get the that very basic lower third with no graphics in it or anything. And then I do put a silly little graphic in there. But the whole point is that you've got like these different things you click on, and you see the dimensions that it shows. These are the dimensions for the different applications, the different things that you'd be wanting to open up. We have the Google Plus image formats. We have the Business Hangouts banner images. In fact, there's a new one that I've got to add there. YouTube image formats. I just read Greg Trujillo. He just wrote a great article about how the little article YouTube gives you doesn't bother mentioning that at smaller sizes your logo is going to be over the top of your text and stuff and in the way. So I altered it thanks to his article, which I put a link in to go read, and I altered my YouTube cover with banners so that it includes that. And let's go ahead and open that so you can see how it opens up. It opens up Pixlr, and it opens up a layered thing that shows the guidelines for where to put things, including where the logo is going to cover over anything. And this is your safe area. So you add your image content, and you got to fill the whole space because it's got to be able to work on a TV set, for instance, or on a wider computer, and or on a wider tablet. That's where this stuff comes in, where some of this will be cropped off at the top and bottom. When you actually start up YouTube on a PC, it only shows this little narrow area where it actually shrinks it even. It takes the image, it doesn't crop it, but it does shrink it to fit in this smaller region. And but there's only one area that's safe on any device, and that's within this white area. So you would basically go in and you would, open up an image. And so let's go ahead and I still got some image content, so let's go ahead and open that image URL again. And let's imagine that I was going to try to fit it into this. into this space. Okay, now you saw I just opened it as a regular thing, and look, see what it did. It created a new document, and I think you see what I would probably do. I would select all, copy, then switch to this one, paste, and it would become a new layer. So let's go ahead and do that. Select all, Control C for copy, and switch over to this, and Control V for paste, and it creates a new layer with the image content. I'm going to take this and put it under this other stuff so I can see where the safe area is, and then I'll take and go to Edit, Free Transform. Of course, you're better off starting off with an image that's already big. And I'm just going to stretch it. I'm not bothering holding my Shift key. The Shift key would force it to constrain so that it stays the same, you know, proportions. But I'm not going to bother with that because I just want to fill this area. There we go. So now I've filled this area, and now I see where my safe area is. This is where I would put in my text or any special graphics that I want that absolutely have to show up on any device. And I would make sure it's not getting covered over by the logo or bumping into the logo, and put it in there. Okay, and then you save it. You turn off the guidelines after that. And oh yes, apply my changes. It's asked me because I just resized it at a transform. Okay, so then I would turn off my guidelines, and my logo is still up there. Where'd the logo go? There it is. And that's when I would save this where it was already laid out and I had my text and everything in there with the safe area, you know, in a safe spot and all that kind of good stuff. So, but you see, that's one way of going about getting the content in here. However, there's another way. So let me go ahead and close this, not save it. Close this too. I still have that URL in there, so I'll still use the same image. So let me close this, and again I'm going to go to my Pixlr templates and hit this. Oh, I'm sorry, I just opened up his great article. There we are. All right, now instead of opening the thing from the file menu, I'm going to go over here to the layer menu, and look, there's an open images layer, open image URL, or open from from the library. So since I've got this URL still in my clipboard, there it goes. So now it's already entered it. It's already been brought in as a layer. So I didn't even have to fiddle with it. And I've got my layers, and it's already brought in as a layer. I didn't have, it saves me a step of having to select all, copy, switch, paste. I'm already in there. It's already a layer. Okay. And I can just move it to where I want it to be, so I can see where the image is. And then as long as I've got that selected, I can use the edit free transform, which is Control T, and I can drag this in to make it fill the space, and then add my text, hit enter to make it take, and go get my text tool, and know that I'm safe typing in here. This is my text. Get that logo out of my face. And make it large, make it not anything but Verdana, and enlarge it, blow it up. Remember, you can't go outside that white area. And doing color, you got to get this off of black to start with. If you want a saturated color, move it all the way to the right, and that's, I'll make it orange. There we go. And hit OK. Get the move tool. Hit the V key to select the move tool, by the way, and you're able to move the thing. And now you got this text, and it fills the space, and it doesn't hit the logo, and you're going to be cool. Okay. So, yes. Hide your things. Put your other graphics in there. Turn these guys off, and you've got the whole thing going on. All right, and of course you saw what I did. Make a rectangle behind here, between the text and the image. And should we do that again? I already have it's already feathered, isn't it? No, it's a new image. Okay, so I feathered about that much. Go ahead and select. Get the paint bucket tool out. Here we are. Select my, make a new layer. In fact, I didn't make a new layer. Silly me. There we go. And turn down its opacity. That's this first button. There we go. That's good enough. A little stronger. There we are. Okay. And deselect. So, as you see, and this is a layer, and these two layers, this is a layer all by itself with this text on. So hit the V key for move, and I can pull it around and put it anywhere I want. Oops. I got to merge these this text layer with this. So let me just pull this down here. This is a cool thing. I'm going to merge these two together so I can treat them as one. You go here to merge down, and it will merge this with the layer just below it. And it doesn't go any further down, it just goes down one. Now I can use the move tool and move the pair of them together. Okay? Remember, you got to be inside of your safe area. So make sure you are. And let's get the safe area under here so I can see where I am. And, whoa, don't want to move the safe area. Don't move the safe area, just move its position. There we go. Make sure I'm selecting the layer that I want to move. And yeah, it was okay. It was pretty much okay. And of course you want to see your layer logo, and that you're not in the way. So looks like I did move some things when I was doing that. But you get the idea. You got the idea. And all right, so what other kinds of things do we have? We're going over an hour already. We have, if you do YouTube live events, like this is a YouTube live event, so I could do the 1080p. Then you need a event background depending on the size of the thing that you're working on. There's a 720p and a 1080p basic background. If you're in LinkedIn, you need a desktop banner and a profile pic. Twitter needs a big background image, a header image for the top, and your profile pic, which is its own size. You see there's all kinds of different sizes. Facebook, same thing. Got all these different things. Bandcamp, if you're a musician, you need a banner image. I made one that's just for a flyer, in case you had to make a flyer and just wanted to be able to do your layout in Pixlr. Place your text and position text with different fonts and tilt it and do any kind of things you can in text. There's a lot of text capabilities in Pixlr. Then you can click this if you're going to print it at 150 pixels an inch, and you pick this if you're going to print it at 300 pixels per inch. And anybody that's got a printer knows that most printers today print at 300 pixels per inch. And but you usually can turn it down to 150 in order to save some ink. And since that's where they mostly get you on the ink, you might want to save some ink and turn your printing settings to 150 and use this one for the layout. And then if you're into AdWords and use Google AdWords, these are all the different banner sizes that you can pay for in the display network. Okay, and including the mobile images for all the different ads, and then I have two that are really just samples of, if you're doing videos, these, so that you can have a click to place, a sample image to show what it'll look like in a page. These are just the same pixel sizes as what they'll be inserting your videos as. And a few extra things. I got a WordPress banner here. It's the old 940. Though I hear they're moving to 960 more often now. And a 100 by 100 avatar image was very common. And a program called WP Local Pro, which is a theme put out by Jason Flatley, and that here's the image sizes you would need for that. But so all of these, they all work the same way. That you click on the link, and it immediately opens Pixlr up, and then you simply, like, here's the new Google Plus cover. So you open Pixlr up, it's got the thing, it's already the right size. You go up here to layer, and you either open an image as a layer from your computer or an image URL as a layer. And since we still have that image URL stuck in here, and this one already fits pretty nice. In fact, it's oversized, so if I transformed, I'd be free transforming it to shrink it down to fit more of the picture. And I could do the same thing with my There we go. Hold shift and try to get it about the right size. There we are. And when you hit enter, by the way, it's going to crop it. You can't go back, and you'd have to go back if you wanted to free transform it back again. Once you hit crop, you can see with the move tool, it takes and moves the layer. Oops, no. There we go. It takes and crops it wherever you would hit enter at. Okay. All right. So those are the basic ideas behind how to use this to get the correct sizes and bring it in. And so that's the little bonus part of today's show. And but the big part that I hope you found more interesting was all of the neat things that you can do in order to make copies of things. You reuse the copies of different stages. Like this is my sharpened stage of that image, and I was able to copy and paste it because it's a flattened stage. And all the different things I can do with masks, with blurring, with text, with the different opacities, the different modes. These are all layer tools, and of course the masks and how you use selections with that, and how you can use a brush as a brush to add pixels, or as the eraser to punch holes in the pixels to see the layer that's below. So you add pixels to see more of the same layer. You use the eraser to punch holes to see what the layers are below. All right, I hope that was clearer than mud and that you had a lot of fun kind of doing this. Go ahead and rewatch this. I covered a lot of stuff really fast. I didn't expect anybody to get this all in one hit of just watching it live. It's a lot to watch, and it's about an hour's worth of material. Give me requests if you want just certain things focused in on, where I just make a shorter video, a 10-minute video or 5-minute video, just covering one part of this whole thing. Make a request to me, okay? Just ping me, and you can send me a private message just by pinging me directly, or add a comment to this events page or to the YouTube video page that's going to be in my profile in just a few minutes, or make a comment to the YouTube channel. And please do subscribe, but be forewarned, I put out a video every single day, and you will get a lot of notifications from me because I do make a lot of videos. And if you select to have your email notifications too, then you'll have email from me just about every single day. 6 days a week I do something on this channel. But yeah, if you want to not miss anything, go ahead and subscribe. Otherwise, just keep checking back. I usually make announcements on my events page. I make announcements through my profile, of course. And the easiest thing is probably just to follow me on Google Plus and have them show up in your notifications whenever I add something. Okay, so that's tonight's whole thing. So I hope you had fun, and let me just bring up the thing. And yeah, that was fun for me to do. I love messing around with this, and I actually learned a couple of things because, like I say, I'd been struggling with the way the masks are different from how Photoshop does masks. You know, it uses the black and white, whereas this uses any color pixel versus eraser tool to affect the mask. And we discovered some kind of curious side features in that when I used the paint bucket tool on the mask area, it was changing the colors in some pretty odd ways, and it only was like seemed to be selectively changing colors only to certain portions of the colored regions, and it was very curious. So we're going to mess around. I'm going to mess around with it over the next week and get more input to just what the heck else might be happening behind the scenes, because there's really not much video information on the more subtle nuances of how the masks work, and everybody just uses the darn eraser tool on the content itself instead of doing this non-destructive editing. But I hope you turned on to the whole idea. Doing non-destructive editing lets you go back and have a lot of fun down the road. In fact, I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to save this whole document as a PXD file, so that I can play with it some more. It just may come up again next week. So okay, thanks for joining me. Every Sunday is the Terry's Tech Show, and I cover different things. We're going to do at least 2 weeks of Pixlr stuff. Plus, I recently started a YouTube channel called Pixlr Trix and a Google Plus page, Pixlr Trix page. That'll likely have some more Pixlr stuff on it. We'll see. I started it just kind of on a whim. And if enough interest comes along down the pike, asking for me to do tutorials on this, then I'll exploit that Pixlr Trix YouTube site a lot more. Plus, if you want to be actually live, a member of the panel in doing these, I can do these as HOAs. I don't have to do them as live events, or I can bring an HOA, a Hangout on Air type of a thing into this whole process, so that I can see your questions, or I can actually see what you're doing as you do some screen sharing, and help people out as we're going along. Okay, and you can actually get some hands-on hand-holding, some actual live help, and I don't mind doing that. It'd be fun. It'd be a lot of fun, and field some questions and actually hear people's voice and see people's faces. All right, so okay, so take care, and I'll see you again next Sunday. And let me just find my my streaming button so I can turn this all off. And oh, it's been shut down. Oh my gosh, looks like that Google page crashed. Well, it looks like you're gonna have to look at me in another second or two while I get back my Google Plus page. So let's see. Live events. There we are. Live control room. Okay, there we go. And everything looks like it went well too. Doesn't look like it dropped any frames, and you got a good 1080p show tonight. All right, I'll see you next Sunday. Take care.